special topic, may I please add, financial inclusion of women-led businesses and MSMEs. I think it's an incredibly important topic to talk about in today's context. And I think Ahmed kind of has set the stage in a certain way. And I was listening to him and he made some excellent points in terms of the advertising agency and what it means for women-led businesses in that sector. I'm, of course, going to take a slightly more macro point of view, so to speak, in this regard. And I think I'd like to begin by actually sharing a couple of data points with each of you. And here's where we begin. So the female labor force participation, we know, has been a problem in terms of, for India. And it has actually fallen for the age group between 15 and 64. It has actually fallen from what was 34% in 2004-2005 to about 25% in 2017-2018. Now, today in a post-pandemic world, I'm quite confident that this figure would have fallen further. Let's start there. So we know for a fact that India has a problem as far as women labor force participation is concerned. But let's take another step. And when we go into what is known as women-led entrepreneurs, and let's begin by seeing how India defines what women-led entrepreneurs or women-led businesses are. So the definition offered by the Ministry of MSME is basically that a women-owned entrepreneurship or an enterprise is an enterprise owned and controlled by women having a minimum financial interest of 51% and also a controlling interest of 51%, and where the employment generated by such a firm for women is also above 51%. Now, for the time being, and I'm going to discount the last part of the definition and just stick to the first two. And I'll come to why I'm doing that. The first two being that you have a controlling interest of 51% and you also have a financial interest of 51%. Now, McKinsey report estimated that that by providing equal opportunities to women, in the entrepreneurial space and in the workforce, can contribute as much as $770 billion. That's 770 billion USDP to GDP by as early as 2025. That's nearly an 18% boost for the Indian economy. Interestingly, though, according to the Female Entrepreneurship Index of 2015, India ranks 70 out of 77 with a score of 25.3 out of 100 points. So which means we are really at the bottom rung. Not very encouraging for a country as large as ours and with a population, women population and entrepreneurs as large as ours. However, the report also, there is a little bit of a silver lining, only a shard almost, which says that India's positives are that at the end of the day, for our women entrepreneurs, there is innovativeness. They have the capability of creating new products and new technology. While the weaknesses, of course, are labor force participation, and very pertinent to our topic is first tier finance. So finance is a problem, even according to the index, and it has been highlighted as early as 2015, and it's something we continue to grapple with today. The seminal report on this topic was by far brought out by IFC in 2019. And before I go to that report, let me give you something that the GIZ report also states, where of 60 million MSMEs in India, only 8.05 million, so 8 million MSMEs, a little shy of 14% of the entire universe, are actually women-led, which is actually incredibly reflective of the state of women entrepreneurship in India. And this is as of 2016 data. Now, of the entire universe of MSMEs, again, 14%, which are women-owned entrepreneurs, are in the micro space, and 4.2 are in the medium space, and 5.6 are small enterprises, which means that as size grows, you see women-led entrepreneurship size also sink. The numbers in terms of women-led enterprises and MSMEs also sink. The IFC report and the author in October 2021 put forward a very staggering and rather appalling figure, saying that the current funding gap, the gender bias and the funding gap as far as women entrepreneurs are concerned, is as high as US dollars 158 billion. So let that sink in. It is US dollars 158 billion. That is staggering. Even for a country like India, it's a huge amount. And it shows two things for us. It shows, one, the kind of bias that exists when we're looking at female-led entrepreneurs, women-led entrepreneurs. And two, parallelly, it also suggests an opportunity that we have. It also seems that rural entrepreneurship is higher than urban. While it may seem counterintuitive, that may not be the case given the way micro entrepreneurship works today and given the role that self-help groups have played. So it is not surprising that rural entrepreneurship is probably higher than, and only by a tad, than urban entrepreneurship. When you look at states, it shows that the Northeast is by far the best performing in terms of women-led entrepreneurs. The South does very well. And it is the middle belt, again, which actually lacks. Now, if you were to correlate these figures with general women entrepreneurship and social development indicators, we will see that the Northeast has done well, and so has the South in comparison to your the Central Indian belt. And therefore, we can actually infer that there is a strong correlation between social development indicators, especially with regard to women and their position in society, and women entrepreneurship and their access to probably even finance. Now, let's actually come to what it means when we say financial inclusion of women-led entrepreneurs. What we're talking about largely is 2 or 3 issues. The first is, do we have enough women-led entrepreneurs in the country? Based on the data that I've just presented to you, the answer is clearly no. We can certainly do much better. The second is to see why that is the case, and why is it also that given how many ever there are, we have said that there are about 8 million of these, why is it that a lot of them haven't managed to scale themselves up? Now, we know traditionally for any business to function, you need capital, you need working capital, you need capital for capacity expansion, and for startups, you need early stage funding. So money clearly is the answer. And the question is that, are we able to provide women-led entrepreneurs money in a timely manner so that they are able to grow their business? The answer apparently is no. And this is not unique to India. Not that we should be proud of that, but it's clearly not unique to India. UBS report actually says that in the US, apparently only 2% of investments in startups are for women-led ventures, despite the fact that 38% of startups are actually have women founders. Similarly, it also says that less than 3% funding goes to companies with female CEOs. This is actually in a developed economy of like the US. Similarly, it also says that top female founders raise substantially less money than their male counterparts. So only about 50 million US dollars, as opposed to 226 million US dollars for male-led startups. And even the valuations are significantly lower for women-led entrepreneurship, which is usually at an average of 65 million US dollars versus a 400 million US dollars in terms of male-founded startups. Ironically, women-led entrepreneurs and enterprises contribute more to the economy. So for every dollar, 78 cents actually comes from women-led entrepreneurs, which is quite a high number. And it's something that we should be looking at. And it's a very similar kind of situation in India. Now, bringing the context to India, there is data to suggest, though it is a little dated, that women-led entrepreneurs have lower NPAs than male entrepreneurs in terms of businesses. And it is also said that they have the potential for them to contribute to the economy is much higher. Now, given this as the stage where the data is compelling enough for us to consider women-led enterprises and women entrepreneurs seriously, it behooves us to ask what is it that we have done for this community and what needs to be done. And more importantly, why is it that we haven't been able to break this barrier and achieve the goal that we need to? Now, clearly, there is a problem vis-a-vis social structures and social biases. Typically in India, women have not, it's not up until recently that women have had the opportunity or the social encouragement to hold assets and to own assets, much less even bank accounts. And this is still a problem in many parts of rural India, as it is in urban India. So I don't think it is necessarily a bias towards more rural India than it is urban. The reason I say that is in terms of funding requirements, the problem is as apparent in urban India amongst the elite educated, as one would call them, as it is as far as rural India is concerned. So just because one may appear as a woman entrepreneur, one may appear to be more educated, more articulate, it doesn't necessarily mean that she has access to the kind of finances that she probably requires to grow her business. So if we dig a little deeper and see why this is the case, and the UBS report has some rather interesting insights to offer, which I think are pertinent to even the Indian context. The social bias is certainly one of the largest problems here. The fact of the matter is, whether we like it or not, the way women are perceived in a business community is typically not to be always taken seriously. You will find many people, and I have dealt with this as part of my journey as somebody in the workforce, where you are talked down to, where you're constantly what in today's language called as mansplained to, and you are also, it is also assumed for some reason that as far as finances are concerned, it is not really a woman's cup of tea. Now, they may seem, it is rather incredulous for us to live in this kind of world even today, but these biases do exist. Now, how do we do away with this bias? If you look at the banking sector has done its bit in introducing certain kinds of schemes which are targeted at women entrepreneurs. So the Bharatiya Mahila Bank, which was first created but then later merged with SBI, also has a loan that offers loans up to, I think, 1 crore without collateral for women who want to actually start or grow their business, which I think is incredibly brilliant. However, the fact of the matter is, how many of them know of these? And there are various other such products that the public sector banks have done, which have either incentives in the form of interest subventions or in the form of non-collateralized loans. However, I will come back to that point in a second. And also in terms of maybe better rates of interest or lower rates of interest. For example, if you are a first-time woman home owner and you are applying for a home loan, you would get anywhere between 25 to 50 basis points lower rate of interest than the base rate. And I think these are all excellent ways to incentivize. However, I think the problem that we face today is how many women actually know of this and what has actually happened vis-a-vis these schemes and how well has it actually taken off. The second and most important aspect is, again, going back to women workforce participation. It has also been alluded that because we have a low women workforce participation, one doesn't approach women-led enterprises with the kind of sensitivity that is required. Now, as Ahmed had actually said, with the opening of gig economy and with the pandemic, I think we are hopefully evolving towards a setup where we can accommodate more flexible work hours for women and offer them a better way of participating in the workforce. But we do have a long way to go. And I think the sad part is, it's not that we don't know what we need to do. For example, the most common aspects that keep coming up is, of course, to break the social prejudice and the social barriers, but that's something that we know is going to take time. But however, with fintech on the rise with other alternative lending products and lending facilities on the rise, and with banks being what they are as well, I think it is incredibly important for us to revisit to see what needs to be done specifically. We know that non-collateralized loans is a way to go. We know that another way to assess credit worthiness and credit risk, we need to look at an alternative. And we've been talking about this for MSMEs per se, and I think we need to maybe create a little more incentive for women. But what is sad is, even though from 2015, we have been very, we have actually laid down what the issues are, and we have managed to lay down what could be possible solutions, we haven't really done much on this front. So I think what is important is for the government, for entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs themselves, and for lending institutions, both traditional and non-traditional. And by non-traditional, I mean your fintechs and all the new age technology-based lending solutions that have come, to sit down and identify just one, to begin with, one implementable solution that would actually help each of them to access finance more. The fact of the matter is, for India today, as I said, given the contribution that is there, the opportunity that is there, it is surprising that we haven't managed to really capitalize on the opportunity that awaits this section. And it's something that we should be looking at in a more concentrated manner, and probably in a more rigorous manner as well. And we haven't been able to do that. The self-help groups are good. And I think one of the reasons why we haven't been able to create the kind of impact that we want is, for some reason, psychologically, we still associate women-led entrepreneurship and women-led enterprises to be enterprises which are small, that work from the home, and that are largely, own account enterprises. Somewhere, the fact of the matter that you would want to help them grow, you want to help them increase their capacity and to build their business, is lost. We're not looking, quite frankly, as women-led enterprises, as enterprises that require growth. You're invariably looking at women-led enterprises as women who want a source of livelihood. There's nothing wrong there. It is important, and all of them start as a source of livelihood, but everybody needs to look at it beyond that. So we need to grow beyond just establishing and setting up livelihoods for people, to actually helping this community and women-led entrepreneurs to grow and build capacity, so that in return, they are able to employ more women in the workforce, and thereby create a more gender favorable ecosystem as far as workforce is concerned, and certainly as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. And I certainly hope that the government will start working towards this, not just in terms of disjointed efforts, but in a more cogent manner, so that the impact is really felt and not just on paper. Thank you very much.